Hello, this is Dr. Alsman, and welcome to the reference portion of the APA workshop. In this section, you'll be learning how to cite sources within a document as well as at the end of a document. Most of this information can be found in your blue 6th edition publication manual of the American Psychological Association. Chapter 6 begins on page 169 and Chapter 7 begins on page 193. I will also be referring you to the sample paper in this manual, which can be very helpful to kind of visualize some of the things that we'll be talking about, and that begins on page 41. A reference page is very important, as well as in-text citations that tie to the full references at the end of a document or an assignment. You're going to be asked in this program to share a lot of personal thoughts and feelings, but you're also going to need to reflect and research on what is out there in literature, what is best practice, what is evidence-based practice that ties into your personal thoughts and opinions. So there will be a majority of the assignments that will include citing scholarly references, because that kind of helps you use APA style, that helps you to reference an APA style, and it makes you a better writer. So understand that in each class you'll be told what needs to be referenced and what does not, but do plan that you'll be doing a lot of research and referencing, whether it be your textbook, whether it be a website, whether it be a journal or an article. But that's a huge portion of this program, is learning how to do research, be scholarly, and look at the evidence. Your reference list must include all of the works that you've cited in your document and vice versa. So if you use a reference, say for example a website, you better make sure that you have referenced that in full at the end of your assignment or paper. So that way, if the faculty would want to go back and look at that reference for some reason, students bring to our attention a lot of really great resources and references that maybe we've not come across ourselves. So a lot of times I'll go back and look at something that a student has cited. It's like, wow, that's a really great article. We could use that for an assignment or an activity, etc. So whatever you're citing within your paper should have a full reference at the end so that the reader can go find it. On the other hand, if you have a reference within or at the end of your paper that is not completely cited, maybe you didn't use it for some reason, but it's somehow in your paper, you need to make sure to take those out. Okay, sometimes I pull a lot of, resources for a paper, and then I thought, oh, I don't really need that one, or it's not as good as I thought it was, or I don't like it. So don't be citing things that you're not using, and that you don't have a full and an in-text reference that match up. On page 49 of the APA manual, you'll see an example of a formal papers reference page. Now, if you're going to be citing in a discussion board, you can just put the references at the bottom of the discussion board with the word references centered, and then cite your references accordingly. But for formal papers, make sure you have a separate reference page that looks similar to this. Note that it has the running head at the top. Notice it has the appropriate page number at the top. And then the next line, double spaced of course, should have the word references not bolded. I see a lot of students who have taken English classes and other classes that require the MLA writing style are using the words worked cited. That is not correct for APA style. So unfortunately, you have to kind of unlearn some of the MLA things you may have learned in high school or other college classes, and start using APA style, because that's what you will use for the rest of the baccalaureate program and onward if you achieve and pursue degrees after that. Notice that the reference page is set up alphabetically. It is set up in a certain style, and you'll need to understand the mechanics of each style as it pertains to a book, an article, a website, or some other document that you may need to cite. So we'll talk more about that in this presentation. Here's just an example on a piece of paper what your reference page should look like. You can see APA formatting on the left, which is your running head. You can see the word references below that, double spaced, and off to the right you can see the appropriate page number. Let me just say at this point that I am totally fine if you use some sort of tool to help format your papers. That is in no way cheating. When I was in school, I used Perla, and that was my own personal choice, but I know that Microsoft Office has a formatting tool within it, and there's probably a lot of other formatting tools out there on the internet. So you need to find something that's easy to use, that works, but is also reliable. For example, Perla, for the most part, I found was pretty reflective of AP and accurate. I didn't have to do a whole lot to change my papers in any way. My running head came up appropriately, my title page came up appropriately, my page numbers, my reference page. But as a critic, which you will become a critic of not only your own work, but you'll also look at other students' work throughout the program, you need to make sure that how it's formatted is correct. Oftentimes the computer is only as smart as the person behind the keyboard and the screen, right? So hopefully these template programs work, but do make sure that you could go back to your book and confirm that, and then as you start writing more papers, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm good, and then that'll save you the formatting nightmare that sometimes students run into when they try to just format their paper freehand without using any kind of template or resource. If you refer to page 198 through 202 in your APA manual, you will see a lot of really good examples on referencing journal articles. You will reference a lot of journal articles because the expectation in this program is that you are looking through not only nursing journals, but allied health journals, maybe psychology journals. So you're going to be doing a lot of that in different classes depending on what topic you're studying. So you'll need to be familiar with the library website, which I know you'll also get in this workshop, but also how to reference those appropriately. And there is a referencing tool available through the library where you can cite articles either in MLA or APA. It's very easy to do because trust me, if I can figure it out, so can you. So you will learn that if you haven't already. But again, you need to be a critic and make sure that when you do that, it's correct, because there have been times where I have used the APA citation tool and my article wasn't correct, or it wasn't formatted right, or the spacing was off, or something like that. So again, going back to your APA book is going to be the best way to ensure that your referencing and citations are correct. So what kind of information do you need when you're citing an article? You need to get as much of this information that is listed on the screen as possible. Now I realize sometimes you can't always get everything for the article, but you should be able to have enough cited that if one of the faculty plan to look up that article, that they could do so. If there's not enough information there, if I don't have a year or a page number, I've seen students omit titles. I've seen students omit a lot of things. It's like, I can't find this article, therefore I don't know it's a valid article. So make sure you have the author or authors, if there are authors listed. Okay. For a research article, if there's no authors listed, it's probably not a research article. Be careful with research briefs and some of these other little smaller type articles that you see in journals. It may be good information, but if we're not seeing authors and actual research information, it may just be an opinion piece or a brief, and it's not going to have enough information to support your discussion or your paper. Okay, so looking at publication year, articles, journals, books should not be more than 5 years old unless there's a good reason. There is what's called a seminal work, which means there is a basis or a historical component to this reference that maybe you need. Maybe you need to research the foundation of open heart surgery, okay, and the first successful open heart surgery. So you're going to go back to that seminal work or that original article, which probably came out in the 70s, about open heart surgery and the first successful case, and you could use that as background information in your paper. But then also you're going to need to look at evidence-based and latest best practice. We don't want you really focusing on old practice or outdated or irrelevant practice, but sometimes that foundational work gives more support to your paper. But typically, your references should not be more than 5 years old. Now, I also understand that sometimes websites, especially credible websites, have information on them that are more than 5 years old. And, for example, the CDC may have something on there that's not as current as we would like, but if that's the latest and best evidence you can find, that's what you got to do, okay? But if you have any questions about a reference or a source that you have found that's more than 5 years old that you are questioning, you need to talk to your faculty person to see if you should use it or not. Obviously, you should have a title to the work that you're going to be using and citing. Publication information. The DOI, the Digital Object Identifier, these are long letters and numbers that are assigned to specific articles. So no matter what database or web base I go to research for that article, that is a unique number to that article. Some of your older articles may not have DOIs assigned to them. I've run into that, and you might too. But again, if you're using information that is less than 5 years old, most of them should have a DOI. Okay, but you wouldn't automatically be marked off if it didn't. I'm sure the faculty person would just look at the article to determine why maybe there's no DOI assigned. The URL is the link that you go to find the article. Understand this is not the library database URL. Okay, this is the URL specifically to the article that has the title of the journal or article in it, maybe the author. But if you're trying to reference EBSCOhost or ProQuest, not everybody's going to have access to that. A lot of those are restricted access, so not everybody could get to that article. So if at all possible, you need to be able to get to the internet or the URL link so that someone could pull that article if they wanted to. Here is an example out of the textbook, page 198, regarding a general reference. Again, as much information as you can provide the reader, the better off you are. So this is an example for citing two authors, the last name, the first and middle initial if you have it, followed by the and sign, again the author, and first and middle initial, the year of publication, title of article, the first letter of the title is capitalized, the rest is not. On the next line, double spaced, indented will be the title of the periodical in italics, followed by the volume number and the issue number in parentheses, the page number, and then the DOI. Okay, it's real important that you find references, journals, articles, whatever resources you decide to use for an assignment or a paper, and it's important to look at the abstract to kind of see, oh, is this something that might be relevant to what I'm going to talk about? But understand that you cannot reference a major component for your paper just with the abstract. And I've seen students just kind of go through and try to pick out enough information from the abstract, which abstracts are great because they summarize the article, but it's not the full article. And sometimes I've read an abstract and then I go back and look at the article, it's like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was at all. So if you think you're going to be able to write papers just based off an abstract, you need to scratch that mentality right away, because you need the full text version of articles. And when you go in and search in your databases, you can set your search parameters to only include full text articles. On occasion, I had to buy an article that I really wanted. I do believe that if you're researching a topic that we've assigned to you, you shouldn't have to buy anything. Maybe for your capstone project, which you'll learn about farther through the program, you may need something more specific that you may have to buy an article or two. But otherwise, you need to limit what you're looking at to full text and not try to get a full reference, thought, or idea out of an abstract. Okay? This is an example of a database search, and it was for an article called Faculty Recruitment and Engagement and Academic Practice Partnership. You can see the authors are listed. You can see where they're affiliated. Maybe, for example, you only want an article that has information published from the United States, or maybe you want something that was only published in the United Kingdom because you're looking at the managed care model for healthcare. However it may be, maybe you just need to narrow your search by author affiliation. That's fine too. You'll find that a lot of research is done outside of the United States, and some of that is okay, but that should not be the focus of every piece of literature or research that you use for a particular assignment. So do kind of be looking at that when you're looking at articles. I'll especially talk to you more about that when you get to capstone. Here you can see the source and the journal, the publication type, English language, major subjects. So again, you can tailor a lot of this information for your search when you set up the search parameters in one of the databases through the library. Okay, and then it shows the abstract here, which you can see is pretty minimal. It does give the research study results, but if you're going to cite this information, you're going to need a lot more than what's here in this abstract. But it also might be enough to say, hey, this might be a good article that I could use for my paper or my assignment. Okay. It shows it's a peer-reviewed journal. We do like you to use peer-reviewed journals because they have more rigor and quality. It also talks about what kind of research design that was utilized for the article. And then it gives information such as the DOI and some of these other things that you don't necessarily need. Okay, but this is a good example of a good research article that could be relevant for a paper or assignment. And here you can see the little green boxes, basically the things you'd be looking for: the title, the authors, the publication information, and at the bottom the DOI. So make sure you're looking at those things as you begin to research, which probably a lot of you have already looked up articles before for different things. I know you already have associate degrees, some of you have other degrees, but maybe just need a little refresher. So hopefully this helps. In this example, you see in yellow the periodical title at the top of the page, the actual title of the article, the authors, the DOI, and then the page numbers as well as publication months and year. You do not necessarily need publication months. You also do not need actual retrieval dates. For example, retrieved August 15th, 2017. As long as you have the other relevant information, such as the title, the authors, the DOI, when you retrieve the article does not matter. I know at one time, and probably in different styles of writing, that is required, but it is not required for APA style. Here you see in this example the issue, which is number 6, the volume number, which is 35, and then the page numbers. Make sure when you're citing an article you list the beginning page number of the article and the last page number of the article. Here you see an excellent reference example. And if this was my only reference, then obviously N would come first. If I had multiple references, I would need to make sure they were alphabetized. You can see my running head at the top, my page number, double spaced, and then my references, word, centered, not bolded. And then here I have my authors' names. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4 authors. And I have the year. I have the name of the article. I have the name of the journal. Then I have my issue, my volume, my page numbers, and my DOI. So again, this is a nice, complete article reference. Here is an example of a journal article without the DOI, and you can see the only difference is that at the end you will put retrieved from and then the website that you found the article. And again, make sure you don't use the database like CINAHL or ProQuest. Make sure you're using the actual website from the article if there is no DOI. This next section discusses referencing the chapter of a book, which you will be doing for all of your textbooks. So even though, for example, you're in the community health nursing book, and I know that your information may have come from the community health nursing book, you are required to do in-text citations and full references at the end of your discussion or paper anytime you use any of the textbooks throughout the program. And you can find that information on page 204 in your APA manual. Okay, understand also that many nursing textbooks are edited books. That means that there was a separate author for each chapter of the book. So for example, I know the gerontological nursing book, if you take gerontology, has different authors for the textbook chapters. So make sure that you are citing the correct author. So Kristen Mock may be the name on the front of the book, but Susie Snow wrote the chapter in the book. Okay, so make sure that you are citing that appropriately. Okay, reference only the chapter from which the information was taken from. And again, make sure, depending on what textbook you're using, whether it be one of our textbooks in the program or something else that you're referencing, that you are doing that appropriately. The information that you will need for textbooks are the author of the chapter and the editors of the book, the title of the book and the title of the chapter that you're citing from, the year that the book was published, the location that the book was published, and the company that published the book, and the page numbers of the chapter. Most of your course syllabi should have textbooks referenced in them, so that might be a good example for you to look at. And of course, your APA manual is the end-all as far as examples. So refer to that as well. Here you can see an example of a chapter from an edited book out of your APA manual, page 204. You can see the author and the year, and again, the author is the person that wrote that chapter, the title of the chapter, and then the editor is next in A editor and B editor, and in parentheses it'll be eds. Now, for example, if you only have one editor, then obviously it would just be that person's name and then ED period in parentheses. The title of the book is in italics, only the first word is capitalized. In parentheses, you'll have whatever edition the book is. For example, it could be the 8th edition, the page numbers that you used, wherever the book was published, and whoever published the book. And that should be inside the front cover of your textbooks or whatever reference book you're using. There are APA resources regarding books on the Nurse 300 site. There's also some library orientation information that will help you with books, and also the reference section of this workshop. So feel free to refer to those things at any time and ask faculty, as always, if you have any questions. The second reference you see here is one of the textbooks that we use in the program, and you can see the name of the authors of the chapter, Nelson and Staggers, the year of the publication, the name of the chapter. The editors are McGonigal and Mastering. Those are interesting, tough words to say. As far as the editors, the title of the book is Nursing Informatics and the Foundation of Knowledge. The edition is here. The page numbers are here. The location of publication, as well as the publisher. So that is a very good example of a textbook reference. As you can see here, websites are a very good place to find information. They may not list individual authors, such as the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So those are considered governmentally published briefs, and so you will cite basically the website and then where you retrieved it from as far as the URL. Corporate authors include Mayo Clinics. You can see here mayoclinic.org will have information. So knowing how to cite these website references are very important because you will be doing a lot of that. So here, pretty easy to cite. The corporate author, it may be the Center for Disease Control. Always remember to spell out the full word or website, and then in parentheses you can put CDC, HHS for Health and Human Services. But make sure that you always initially spell it out, followed by the abbreviation, the year, the title of the web page is in italics, and then retrieve from and provide the web address. And here is an example of that. Here's another example, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 2015, scarlet fever, a group A streptococcal infection, retrieve from, and then the web address. And here you can see that we've added to our reference list, and it is a wise thing to add to your reference list as you go versus trying to figure it out later. We have our internet web-based site, the CDC. We have our journal article, and then we also have a textbook. If you have any questions at all about anything presented in this workshop module, please let Dr. Alsman know, JALSMAN at vinu.edu. Phone number is 812-888-5803, or feel free to ask course faculty at any time if you have questions. Thank you.